Welcome to the Road to the Ryder Cup, hosted by Dr. Jeff Poplarski and my dad, PGA golf professional Frank Darby. Let's go USA!
Hello and welcome to the Road to the Ryder Cup. My name's Frank Darby and my co-host is Dr. Jeff Poplarski. We're sponsored by the wonderful organization Tunnel of Towers Foundation and Frank Silla. So we're looking forward to our upcoming guest, Jim Furyk, but Jeff's got to give us a few updates on what's happening at Bethpage, and he is out at Oakmont as we are talking here with his wellness and recovery team. So, Jeff, take it away.
Yeah, Frank, around 105 days to the Ryder Cup, one of the most anticipated sporting events in the United States. A lot of activity up at Bethpage. I did speak to Evan Crowder, who's the operations manager at Bethpage. He gave me a couple of statistics. The Empire Suites, which is on hole number 18, are starting to get erected. The 1927 Pavilion, in honor of the first Ryder Cup in 1927, that's going up on hole number 1. The Captain's Club will be on the right-hand side of number 1. That's being erected. The chalets on 15 and 16, which actually have porches on both sides, so the people in those chalets could get to see action on hole 15 and 16. That's getting erected. The media center is going up where the tennis courts are. And also the 4,300 volunteers were notified this week of their shifts. So there are 26 committees at the Ryder Cup. The committee chairman sent out the 4,300 volunteers their shifts. So a pretty exciting week there at Bethpage. As far as the U.S. Open, yes, we have the performance and recovery team here like we usually do. This is our 48th USGA championship, offering those services to the players and the caddies. But Frank, I have to give props out to you because you have 2 players from St. John's University. Keegan Bradley is T11 as of this morning. And Ryan McCormick is T11. And I think Keegan was somewhere in the 40s there. So looks like they probably make the cut. So kudos to you, Frank, and maybe some thoughts on Ryan and Keegan this week.
Yeah, hey, listen, they've been great representatives of St. John's University. I love coaching both of them. 2 different kinds of players. Keegan's just had so much success out there. And Ryan McCormick, and we talk about it all the time. When Ryan McCormick turned professional, he was commuting to the Asian tour, believe it or not. They had 2 weeks off. He'd fly over to Singapore, come back, play here, back and forth. So that kid will do anything he can to be out there on the PGA Tour. Had 1 year last year, lost his card, back on Corn Ferry Tour. So hopefully we'll get to see him back out there.
Yeah, wish both players the best of luck. You know, we're very fortunate to have our guest, Jim Furyk, who played in 9 Ryder Cups, which is second all time behind, I think, Phil Mickelson has 12. And Jim also was the vice captain of 4 Ryder Cups and also the captain of the 2018 Ryder Cup, I believe, in France. So welcome, Jim. Maybe some opening comments about, I think you said you were at Bethpage this Monday. Maybe some thoughts about what you saw there on Monday.
It seems like they're whipping into shape right now. I kind of drove out. I spent most of my day on the 14th hole, so I was hitting shots on the par 3, but drove through a bit of the course. Looks beautiful coming around. The rough did not look too penal as of right now, but just kind of seeing the setup. Massive tents being put up to the right of the first fairway. To the right of the 15th, massive corporate hospitality there. So kind of interesting to see kind of the early stages, watch the build out. It'll look totally different when we get back there in late September. So, excited. Golf course has always been amazing, always very difficult. A place that I've struggled, honestly. I haven't competed. I haven't played very well, and I think I've played 4 events there and no real high finishes to speak of. So, it's always got my number, and I think it's one of the more difficult golf courses that I've had a chance to play throughout my career.
Hey, Jim, it's so nice having you on here. Me being a PGA member for 42 years, you're a PGA member. Your dad was a head professional. What was that like growing up with your dad teaching you?
Yeah, a lot of fun. I think, early on, my dad kind of pushed me out of golf or pushed me into other sports would probably be the best way to say. I played football, baseball, basketball. He would take me to the golf course. We practiced. He taught me. It was more about having fun. But as I got older, as I got to about the age of 12, I kept bothering him. I wanted to be on the golf course more. I wanted to spend more time there. And he realized that he didn't want me to get into golf or into the business because he was in the business. He wanted it to be my choice. And he realized I was bothering him enough that, got me a membership at the local muni for, 2 or 3 months when I was 12 that summer. I played golf pretty much every day. And, it's when baseball ended and before football started. Kind of fell in love with the game and played my first tournament at the end of that summer and kind of got hooked. I enjoyed the, when you're a little kid and you're playing other sports, you practice all week and you have a game at the week, on the weekend that you get excited for. And, golf at that time was just fun, just hanging out with my buddies, messing around, just trying to see how good you could play. Or, I was Arnold Palmer, my buddy was Jack Nicklaus, and we had matches. We just had a lot of fun with it. And then when I played that first tournament, it reminded me all the sports I played. I got to practice the whole summer and then kind of compete. And obviously I didn't do very well in my first tournament, but I got hooked and it's something I wanted to do the next summer.
I think it's so important with growing up there and getting exposed to the team aspect real early. And I think a lot of golf professionals are the same way. And I was too. I love the team. I love being around the guys, but like you said, I got hooked as well. And I kind of liked, I got whatever I put into it as well. I wasn't counting on other people. And I think it's real important for the kids to at least be exposed to that team concept instead of just specializing in golf right off the bat.
I agree. I think we're pushing. I have 2 kids now that one just graduated from college. She was a track athlete. My son plays lacrosse in college. But we're pushing these kids to play one single sport so early. Sometimes in middle school, you have club coaches saying, well, you can't play for my team if you're going to play another sport. And I think the cross training is important. I think you learn so many different skills, both physically and mentally, from other sports. My college coach, for one, loved to recruit athletes, kids that played other sports. And I bet as a college coach, you're seeing less and less of that. You're seeing more kids that probably only played golf growing up versus kids that played a whole bunch of other sports, would be my guess.
Yeah, I'll tell you a real interesting story that you can ask Keegan Bradley about. So he was a downhill racer in Vermont on his ski team. And I remember him telling the story that he had an unbelievable run, broke his personal record by 2 seconds, and immediately quit. And he said that there's no way I could go any faster than I just did without killing myself.
Gotcha.
So, so that was it, and then he got hooked on golf as well.
Gotcha.
Jim, you were the captain of the President's Cup in 2024 up in Montreal for a victory for the United States of America. Just some thoughts or comparison between a President's Cup and a Ryder Cup. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the biggest difference is right out of the chute that everyone would recognize. I mean, just different teams. And so the U.S. versus Europe has a totally different feel than the U.S. versus the international team. And then you look at the success rates. In the President's Cup, the U.S. has been very successful. I think we've lost that event one time. We've tied once, but and more than 10 wins throughout the years. It's not been the same case since the late 80s, early 90s. Europe has gotten the better end of us, and so that's become this giant rivalry. And where we've really struggled is overseas, going to Europe and winning, and we haven't been able to do that in over 25 years. So Europe has come here and beat us at least a couple of times on our home soil, maybe 2 or 3 times in that amount of time. And so, it's lopsided to their favor. And I think when you look at the strategy from a captain's perspective, there's some big differences too. There's always been more matches played in the President's Cup. So that event tended to show more depth on the team. The strategy for the captain with only having 4 matches out in the old days, there was days in the President's Cup where we had 6 matches on the course and everyone was playing. So that changes your strategy a bit. And then the one biggest difference, and I think is pretty cool about the President's Cup, is you get the matchups.
Yeah.
And so in the Ryder Cup, Keegan's going to put, here's my 4 team matches on one side. Luke Donald's going to put his 4. No one knows what they're doing. And then they take the cards, they put them together, and you see who's playing who. In the President's Cup, Mike Weir was the other captain. He goes, in my first match, I'm going to put out Jason Day and Adam Scott. And I get to say, okay, well, if you're going to put those 2 out, I'm going to go with Scotty Scheffler and Russell Henley. And then I have to put a team out and he matches. And it's fun for the players. When I played, I always went down the list and I was like, all right, did Cap put me out or first, or did he match me? Like, our captain thinks I can beat those guys. It was like a shot of confidence. But if my captain put me out and their other captain matched someone up, it was like a chip on my shoulder. I was like, oh, okay. Gary Player thinks he can beat me, huh? Like, I used it as fuel, and I wanted to, I wanted to prove him wrong, I guess, if that makes sense.
Hey, Jim, why hasn't the PGA or the Ryder Cup adopted that President's Cup? I think it's phenomenal. I think it's so much fun watching you guys go back and forth and all the both teams and assistants. I don't know what they're saying, but it's actually really exciting.
Yeah, I think there's just a history. I think the Ryder Cup was always done that way. It's played for 28 points for a long, long time, and it has such a great tradition. And the Ryder Cup, I mean, it's in my opinion, it's the elite event in our sport. So I think going in there, and I know maybe other sports, you're always trying to tweak, change, make things that make an event or make a game better. But in this case, they are the cream of the crop, in my opinion, and they have a wonderful event. And maybe you don't mess with something that's broken, not broken.
Yeah, Jim, the calls, Netflix, everybody watch those shows when the captain has to call a player, either they made it or they didn't make it. That certainly got a lot of exposure there, especially with Keegan, the last pick there, the last Ryder Cup. Tell us about maybe a story or two about your 2018 captaincy, about some of those calls.
Well, that, in my opinion, is probably the toughest job that a captain's given. It's fun to call. I had 4 captain's picks in 2018. I had 6 captain's picks in 2024 at the President's Cup. And so you get to make those calls, and you have 4 to 6 guys that couldn't be happier. I mean, you want to pat them on the back. Welcome to the team. Here's why I picked you. You want to give them a shot of confidence and excitement for the event. But, you have to turn around and call 4 to 6 guys that aren't going to make the team. They're disappointed. It's a hard call to make, but I think, and I've been on both sides of that. I received a couple times through my career, I received, the message that I wasn't going to be on the team. And I received the call from Davis Love saying, hey, I want to put you on the team as a captain's pick. I've experienced both sides of that. And so I think as a captain, you want to call as many people as you can, even to say, hey, I went a different direction, but you kind of get in quick. I think you deliver the news. You be as nice about it as you can, and you have to get out. I mean, no one, you can't haw around and they only hear the bad at that time. And so, I had a lot of those tough calls, and some friends, some guys, one in particular that was a pretty darn good friend of mine that I had to call last year and say, I'm going a different direction. And you worry, like, is that going to affect my friendship with this guy for the rest of our lives, or are we going to move on from this? So, it's a difficult thing to do.
Do you think that they're ever going to change this 6-pack captain's picks back to, 4 or 2 picks as well, with all the young talent coming up and how close they are?
Yeah, I think 2's probably too few. You could definitely argue that 6 is too many. It really hasn't happened, though, very often, if ever, where like the 7th and 8th guy haven't got selected. I think maybe Davis one year, Bubba Watson was going through a little bit of a tough stretch with his putter, and I think he might have been about 9th or so on the points list, and did not get selected. But Davis brought him as a vice captain, and he did a wonderful job with the team, and was extremely gracious. Bubba handled that situation so well, and I think it was a great addition for our team. The way he carried himself was phenomenal. So as far as the 4 or 6, we went to 6 originally, kind of back in the COVID years, where the points got There was too few events. The points got scrambled. We weren't exactly, the tour was changing the schedule there for a couple years significantly. And I think it was more of a just, hey, we don't know what's going to happen. And, let's pump the brakes and kind of give the captain the opportunity. I think that might've been in Strick's Ryder Cup, if I'm correct. So, yeah, I could see it turning back to an 8-4 possibly. I think 10-2 is too few, to be honest with you.
I'm with you on that.
I think a captain having just being able to build out a team as far as personalities. A captain needs to see, what do I have on my team now? Where are my strengths? But you know what? Where are my weaknesses? Where could I fill in some gaps? And so I don't always necessarily think you're going with, on paper, the 12 best players I can put on this team and then try to figure out how they blend. I think on the front end, you're looking at pairings, you're looking at personalities, you're looking at, I think having rookies on the team is amazing. I think it's a shot of adrenaline. It's a shot of excitement. I think wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to go. But I think having some veteran leadership as well, and some guys that can, ride along with those rookies. Europe does a very good job of that. Kind of a leader in the group and a follower in the group, and a little yin and yang, as they say. And I think just trying to get not necessarily the best 12 players, trying to get the best team of 12 together.
Yeah. Jim, just a few questions before we go to break. One is, were you at the Unity dinner in Philly? And number two is, what is your communication with Keegan? Do you talk to him on a weekly basis, daily basis?
I was the only captain not there. I have had a hip replacement recently, and I was going through some rehab at that time. So I'm about 8 weeks out right now, but kind of in a critical time for my recovery and getting back to playing golf. So I was not able to make it, but did participate. Knew what Keegan was going in there, knew what his goals were. And so we talk, we're on a text thread a lot. I think a number of times during the week, someone will start chirping about how the guys are playing, current events, what's going on in the game, how we see our team, what Keegan sees happening. And then I would say Keegan and I probably pick up the phone, and if I think of something or vice versa, we probably talk every few weeks or so and have a nice long conversation. And he tells me where he's at. And I really see myself like being quite a bit older than the rest of our captains, and really being involved with not only playing in a bunch of these teams. I think I played on 16 of them, but I've probably been a captain or a vice captain in, I don't know, let's say 8 possibly. I didn't ever really count it up. So just kind of going back in time and where we came from and how we got, I think I just provide a little bit of a history to it and stability, and a guy that Keegan can bounce some ideas off of, and hopefully I can provide him some wise or keen advice.
Jim, just one more fast thing before we go. Jim, when are you going to be able to come back and play from your hip surgery?
I'm hoping in August. I've kind of targeted an event in Flint, Michigan, the Ally. We used to have a PGA Tour event there. It was a Buick invitation back then, and now it's one of the events on our Champions Tour. And Ally is one of my sponsors, and it's kind of one of my favorite events for probably greedy personal reasons. I've won there a couple of times, so it'd be a nice place to go back and start playing.
Yeah, so we're going to go to commercial break. Our sponsor of the Road to the Ryder Cup podcast is the Tunnel to Towers. You could go on their website, t2t.org, and make as little as $11 a month donation to assist with our American heroes. Let's hear from the Tunnel to Towers.
Hi, I'm Gary Player. I'm a professional golfer. I've won 165 tournaments, and I'm one of 5 golfers to achieve a Grand Slam career victory. But what means more to me than all of this is my ability to give back and do good, particularly to the United States of America. That's why I'm committed to helping Tunnel to Towers Foundation.
Good to see you, Frank. Good to see you, Darby. How you doing?
You're one of the most successful golfers that ever played the game. You're an incredible human being, but you joined the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. You see the work we're doing, and you wanted to help us raise money because how much you love America.
And I'll never forget one of the days I went for you in Miami. This lady was on duty with her husband and the police. She heard that her husband had just been killed. Now she's got 2 children. What's the first thought that comes to your mind? How am I going to support these children? How am I going to give them an education? How am I going to give them a normal life? What am I going to do with my mortgage? Tunnel to Towers is right there, across the board. I mean, what you do is fantastic.
Because you know the sacrifice that was made for our country to give us this beautiful country.
I doubt if there's anybody that loves the country more than I do. And I have said gratitude for what this country has not only done for me, but what it's done for the world.
And as a foundation, you know, we're there to help these families after they lose their loved one and they have young families left behind. And I know you're here to join us on that.
Tunnel to Towers is working every day to support America's greatest heroes. Please donate $11 a month at t2t.org. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Let us do good.
Hey, this is Jim Furyk. You're listening to the Road to the Ryder Cup podcast.
Hey, welcome back to the Road to the Ryder Cup. We've got a great guest here, and Jim Furyk. He's given us some great info. And hey, Jim, I think Keegan has picked, just made a wonderful pick with his vice captains, including yourself. You've been around, you know, so many different things. You've seen kind of everything else. But tell me how you're interacting with your other vice captains, Brent Snedeker, Webb Simpson, and Kevin Kisner.
Yeah, so I've known the 3 of them for a long time. You know, I obviously haven't been playing on the PGA Tour for most of the last 5 years, but competed a lot with the 3 of them. Let's see, Brant and I were partners in Medina at the Ryder Cup. Played on a lot of teams with Webb, captain teams that Webb was on, and the same with Kiz. Kiz and I have been actually, I'm pretty close with Kevin as well. We had a playoff together back at Hilton Head, and guy that I keep in touch with. He's I love the sarcastic humor. I love being around kids. He's a lot of fun. You know, I brought Kevin and Brant in as my assistants last year. Webb served as an assistant for Davis Love in Charlotte. So they've got some experience behind them. And I think they were good choices. I think it's really up to us, the 4 of us, maybe Keegan adds a 5th here in the future. It's up to us to really band together, figure out what our strengths are. Each one of us comes from a different direction. I think we look at the game and maybe this team a little bit differently, but we'll all have our strengths that we can add. And so the more that we can do that without maybe putting a lot of pressure on Keegan to figure out what we're good at, I think the better. I think, the assistants are valuable. And I've kind of told Keegan, he's not going to see a lot of golf on the golf course, believe it or not. The captain doesn't. They sit on par 3s. They give some advice. You see some guys go through and hit some shots, but at the end of the day, he might not see more than 20 golf shots or 25 golf shots from our team. He's really got to rely on his eyes and ears. He'll have an assistant or vice captain in every group, and we have to really be, truthful, honest. We really have to be able to communicate to him what we're seeing on the golf course and how we can help him in any way.
So let me just ask you one question about I kind of liked it when they got this task force together, and
bad name. It was a good idea. Terrible name. Terrible name.
Well, but so it's kind of nice seeing all these different faces coming up here right now, and there'll be future President's Cup, future Ryder Cup captains. And are you still involved in with that committee or whatever it is?
I am not. I kind of phased out. I was in the original group that we identified Davis Love to be the captain at Hazeltine. We kind of got together and, what do we want to do in the future? How do we want to select our captains? How do we feel like we can start moving this progression in a quicker pace forward for our Ryder Cup team? So I was involved with that for a while. I think if you look back from that time, from about 2016, you had a lot of the same guys on both the Ryder Cup and President's Cup teams as captains. And I think us getting to do it every year is a benefit. Some folks think that may not be the case. I think we get to vet our pairings. We get to get together more often and kind of create a team atmosphere for these guys. But we had a lot of the same captains, from Davis Love, Freddie Couples, Steve Stricker, myself, Tiger. You kind of went down and you saw there was about six guys or so, and you saw 4 of us almost at every event. And And now it's a little bit of the changing of the guards. A lot of the guys have kind of, I don't know if aged out is the right way, but kind of we're progressing on. I'm kind of the one, I'm the youngest of that group. So I'm the one guy kind of left over, but we're turning over a new group of guys. And so to see Kiz and Sneds and Webb and again, Keegan will most likely add possibly another person. So to see kind of a young, fresh group in there, I think is wonderful. It's the same thing as a team, right? You get that young exuberance in there and hopefully some veteran leadership as well.
Jim, I do work at Bethpage. I'm the golf performance director there, along with, doing the USGA performance and recovery team. So I do have one responsibility. I'm chairing the walking marshals.
Okay.
There are 75 of us that are going to walk with the groups inside the rope, 8 of us, kind of the eyes and ears and see something, say something, along with police officers and family and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to doing that. So we'll see you. We'll see you every day at the Ryder Cup
Sounds
for sure out there. But my question was the New York crowd. Concerns, obviously it's a home game for the USA. What are your thoughts about the New York crowds and how that's going to play out?
Sure. I'll say one thing real quick. I think the fact that Bethpage is a city or county-owned facility, correct?
New York State.
State-owned facility. To have a director of fitness and have a program like that at a public golf course, state-owned public golf course, I think is amazing. I think that's really cool. And I wish we had. I mean, there's a lot of private country clubs that don't have something like that. So I think that's fantastic. As far as the crowd at Bethpage, I mean, that is a loud, boisterous group of folks. I think New York is dear to their sports fans, but a U.S. Open at Winged Foot or a U.S. Open at Bethpage or a U.S. Open at, say, Shinnecock, they all look a little different. And there is no louder, no more boisterous than Bethpage. I would say that's I could even use the word possibly the toughest crowd I've ever played in, because not only will they cheer and be loud and crazy when you hit a good shot, but you might hear about a bad shot as well. Little different than our usual. And so, I mean, I'm excited. It's always the 2 home field, the home course advantages we have, whether it's Europe over there or the U.S. here in the States, is really golf course setup. Keegan's got a little bit of say in how the course gets set up. And so he'll try to find any little advantage that we have and try to set the golf course up to use that. And then the second part is the crowd. I mean, the Europeans travel well. They'll have a few thousand people there. They're very organized. They sing their songs, they chant. And with that, when you do it in unison, you can make 3,000 sound a lot louder. However, if our 1,000 wants to drown them out, they don't really have to do it in unison. They can just drown them out really quick with USA chants. And so I think the one thing that probably needs to be said is, we need to give them something to cheer about too. It'd be really nice to get off to a good start, catch some momentum, even if it's close early, but somewhere in there to just grab some momentum, try to catch a little bit of a lead. Then you get the crowd involved, and then it puts a lot of pressure on the other team. If you look back at Rome, we got off to such a slow start. We got behind the 8 ball so fast, and the guys fought back. And there was just a little moment on Sunday where you're like, it could happen like this. We need a couple things to happen, but it's within reach. And then you slow the crowd down a bit. But our guys had to deal with a lot of noise, and it's frustrating. It's tough. So I hope, we want our guys to don't necessarily have to get out to the fast start, but you want to get in there and then grab some momentum where you can get the fans into it. And when you can do that, it's a big advantage for your team.
Jim, I think you're 100% right. And Jeff and I are New York based, so of course we're going to be with the New York fans.
I would have never guessed that with the accents.
But the one thing and you said it before, they gave Sergio a hard time on his re-gripping, counting his re-gripping. But then when somebody else came through and it was their birthday, they're out there singing happy birthday as well. So, it's going to, I think that there's a lot of anticipation about what the crowd's going to be like, but I think golf's a little bit of a different crowd as well.
And a Ryder Cup crowd is not a golf crowd.
Yeah, you're right.
The Ryder Cup reminds me a little bit of the Super Bowl. In the Super Bowl, you have 2 teams playing, but 80% of the people in the stadium, they're not rooting. They're not rooting for either one of those teams. It's not quite the case in Ryder Cup because 95% of the people are going to be rooting for the United States. It's a different. It's not going to be the U.S. Open crowd. I don't believe the local, more local New York. You're going to bring more of a corporate, worldwide crowd into this. It's still going to be very pro-U.S. I love seeing the hockey jerseys, the red, white, and blue on everyone, hats. Not only Ryder Cup gear, but anything that says USA on it. And it's just it's a cool atmosphere. We get to play in a very sterile sport where you hear a lot of polite clapping, and Augusta has their roars and you hear some big roars along the way, but this is like a big football game. The Super Bowl broke out on a golf course, and that's why it's so special to us as players. We don't get that atmosphere very often, and it's really cool for us to do it. Especially, it's good both ways. I love going to Europe and kind of playing the villain role, but it's so nice to be at home and to hear the USA chants and just have that support.
Yeah, Jim, I know the PGA of America placed John Wood as the manager of the Ryder Cup. I just wanted to talk maybe about his roles there, and obviously, I just a little update maybe on Fluff, how he's doing. We haven't seen Fluff in a while out here at the championships, but a little comment maybe about John Wood and Fluff.
Yeah, I think John probably brings a different perspective coming from a caddy role originally. Now he works in television, but he's very active. Whether it's from a caddying perspective or now being out on the road, seeing the players, I think he's a bright guy, and I think he brings a different perspective. I think his role is working probably more with the PGA of America themselves and somewhat with Keegan. I think Keegan would have to comment on that a little bit. I think just trying to add probably some stability, some similarities from every other year, from venue to venue. I think that's what John brings. As far as Fluff, we're both kind of in the same boat. He had his hip replaced last fall, late summer, early fall. He basically, his goal was to be ready to come out and be at the President's Cup with me. As my assistant, we were in a cart together all day, and he's been by my side for about 25 years. So to be able to share that with him in 2018 at the Ryder Cup and then 2024 at the President's Cup was really cool. And so he worked his tail off to be ready and do that. He's still caddying some. I know he worked a little bit for Billy Andrade early this year. They finished second down in at the Chubb Classic in Western Florida. So I think he's trying to get out there and caddy as much as he can, but he's also Fluff 78, 70. I might have got him one. He's 77 years old. I think I added a year on him, but 77. He's tough. I mean, it's a hard job for a young man, let alone 77 years old, carrying the bag, hip replacement. He's a beast to be able to do it.
Jim, I just need to ask you one more question, and I think this is something that all the PGA golf professionals, LPGA, do so much behind the scenes for charity. Can you tell us a little bit about the Jim and Tabitha Furyk Foundation?
Yeah, I think, that's just kind of the game of golf. Well, no matter what walk of life you came from, in the game of golf, at each event we play, as you said, you're PGA professionals. You're always trying to better the game. You're always trying to better your community and help out as much as you can. And so Tabitha and I kind of, we saw the work that each and every PGA Tour event does in the community, but we also looked up to a number of folks. Jack Nicklaus and he and Barbara have the children's hospitals, and Arnold Palmer and Winnie had the children's hospitals in Orlando. But I played in events for Peter Jacobson that benefited the Pacific Northwest, Billy Andrade and Brad Fax, and they had the CVS event in their home state of Rhode Island. And so we would play in a number of these different charitable events for our friends and saw the work they were doing in our communities. And Tabitha and I were very active here in Jacksonville, but we kind of organized it all in 2010 when we started the Jim and Tabitha Furyk Foundation. And the mission is to help children and families in need here in Northeast Florida, but we're very project specific, and we have an outreach, a military outreach. We work a lot closely with our local children's hospital here in Wolfson's. Really just trying to make an impact here in Northeast Florida as much as we possibly can. And so The event started out as kind of a celebrity golf pro-am. It was a day and a half. We had a kind of a Sunday night party, a Monday golf tournament. We were able to got it to where we were raising about $400,000 or $500,000 a year, and that would kind of fund most of our programs for the year. And then we, as I got closer to 50, we started inquiring about the possibility of hosting a Champions Tour event. So, a good friend of mine, Steve Stricker, hosts one in Madison. Davis Love has the RSM on the PGA Tour. Kind of a dream come true to be able to have your own tournament, and then bring your buddies in that you play with week in and week out. Bring them to your hometown. Put on a great event that's fun for the community, but ultimately, it's successful if you can raise a lot of money. And so we now are able to raise about $1.3 million a year for Jacksonville charities in Northeast Florida, for that matter. So it's a labor of love. Tabitha runs our foundation. She's kind of the executive director of the tournament, and we have a nice small team of about 5 folks that work. And it's amazing what everyone's got to carry. They all do a lot of different jobs. They've got to wear a lot of different hats, but a very small group, and they put on a wonderful big event here in Jacksonville.
Yeah, fantastic. That sounds great. Jim, I have to ask you this question just as a high handicap golfer. You shot a 58 in 2016. How did you feel that day? It was just like a 58, man. That is the lowest round in the PGA Tour. Is that correct?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
It'll get broken probably sooner than later. The athlete, the bigger, stronger, faster athlete, paired with some equipment, but I'm not going to take anything away from the athlete. The training methods and the athletes are just getting bigger and better. So that record will go down, but it's, I guess, a lot of fun too. I shot 59 in 2013, and then I shot the 58 in 2016. So ages 43 and 46 for me. And I guess both days were very similar. I got off to real fast starts. I shot 8 under on the first 9, and then kind of a mental battle in the back 9. When you get close to a barrier like that and say, you know what, I could honestly break 60 like that. That's crazy. I never really thought I'd have that opportunity. And so you're firing on all cylinders. My game was in good shape that day, or both of those days. And I just kind of, both times just kind of fought mentally on the back 9 to quit thinking about score, think about the process, hit it in the fairway, knock it on the green, give it a good look at the putt. I was able to stay out of my way just enough to keep it going. The 58, the strange thing about it was Sunday round in Hartford, and it was the last day of a 4-week stretch. And I really didn't play well for that 4 weeks. The first 3 weeks, I barely made the cut. Like, I grounded out. I was frustrated. I was struggling with my golf swing. I was hitting some wild shots. And so I was on edge and on point every swing, just worried about everything. Friday in Hartford, I played a poor Thursday round and gutted out like a 66 or 67 to make the cut on the number. I made like an 8-footer on the last hole after a mental error into the green just to make the cut. I played poorly on Saturday. I shot 1 over. And I went to the golf course Sunday, I think just kind of relieved, like the 4 weeks was over. I beat myself up on the range. I was tired. And I was going home. I was so excited. I was just, how quick. It's when you go to the travel agent and say, hey, I'm playing at 7:30 tomorrow. How fast can you get me home? And I literally thought I was going to get home for dinner. Like I was going to cook a steak, probably open a bottle of wine. I was going to be, ready to go. And so I just showed up at the course that day kind of in a much better mood, ready to kind of let it go. And somehow that 4 weeks of work that I put in, it just kind of all culminated on one day. And I just had a day where I striped it. I mean, I hit every fairway, hit every green. I hold an iron shot. I almost hold 2 others where I had little, 1-foot tap ins, but they were dancing around the hole. I had a day that, you can't really describe. And then I got to the back 9 and I had to, kind of get out of my own way and fight mentally. It's the same thing trying to break 90 for the first time or 80 for the first time or 70 for the first time. I can remember all those where I was in all those instances. And then it's kind of the same thing. You start with if I could you start thinking about the result rather than this is what got me here, and you're hitting it good. Let's stay aggressive. And what are the keys and fundamentals I need to do to hit this drive well? And to stay in the moment sometimes is very difficult.
You know, Jim, an interesting stat, and you won an NCAA, you on the NCAA team at the University of Arizona. It's amazing that nobody has ever broken 60 in a college event. You think with all these great players out here, it's never been broken.
Yep. Well, again, it'll happen. I mean, it happened on the Corn Ferry Tour, a number of times. 58's been shot out there as well. It happened on, back in the 80s or 90s. It happened on what was the TC Jordan Tour, or the Hooters Tour back then. There was a 59. I never thought that would be possible or in the realm, but I guess early in my career, a lot of my wins came in Vegas, and scores were like 25, 28, 29 under. So I'm always known as a guy that's like US Open style, gut it out, grind it out. Even par is a good score, but I don't have a problem. Like I can get comfortable going pretty low as well. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we love offense instead of defense right now.
Well, you're not going to see it this week at Oakmont. How's that?
No way.
Yeah. So Jim, last question for me. I'm here at Oakmont. I talked to a couple of European players that should be on the European Ryder Cup. Two of the players told me that they're going to show up 2 weeks prior to the Ryder Cup and stay out in the Hamptons for a week and a half, 2 weeks prior. What would be the plan over the next 3 months for USA? If you could just sum it up.
I think he would, Keegan would definitely, it's Keegan's team, so he would answer that a little bit better. But I think, again, Keegan's looking at golf course. He's looking at setup. It's a big bubble at that point. As far as the team atmosphere itself, I think our top, 4, 5, 6 is starting to kind of pull away. Now, the focus is going to be on captain selections, trying to get a team-like atmosphere. I think you always want your leaders, your best players, to buy in and take a leadership role. I think that makes a captain's job really easy. You see that a lot in Europe. Rory, John, et cetera, Justin Rose. Good leaders. I think it's wise. Like the more players they get to come and stay on Long Island, get used to the time change, is wise. I think when we went over last time, we went on a trip early to Rome, and then came home, and then we arrived on Monday morning. And so now you're dealing with jet lag. You're dealing with, in my Ryder Cup in 2018, we didn't have a choice. The Ryder Cup fell right behind the Tour Championship. Basically, we finished the Tour Championship, I believe, in 2018. We hopped on a plane, flew over there to get there Monday morning. We had no choice. But you're dealing with, especially going east, you're dealing with jet lag. You're dealing with your body doesn't feel right as a player for 2 or 3 days. So your practice on what little practice you do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that's all kind of by Thursday, you start to feel good. You tee it up on Friday. So I think the more time they could spend is better. I think, our guys, the one thing about Bethpage is most of our guys will have probably already played that golf course. I've played 4 tournaments at Bethpage throughout my career. I think a lot of our guys will know the course. They live in the States. They can get up there and take a peek at it. Long Island's not a bad place to spend some time. And then Keegan will figure out, are we going in, or, when exactly are these guys going to get together, and what time are they going to go in to bond and be together. What I did last year, and that's Keegan's decision. What we did last year for the President's Cup, instead of going up to Royal Montreal 2 weeks in advance, we just went in early. The guys wanted to come in the weekend before the event, spend some time together, bond, and kind of see a golf course that would be closer to what it would look like tournament week. You play the golf course 2-3 weeks in advance. You get to see it, but you're not going to see it in the same conditions it's going to play for a Ryder Cup. Same thing with the U.S. Open. You can go see it 3 weeks earlier, but it's not going to look like the U.S. Open until tournament week.
Jim, the one thing I do like, and it's probably started right around when you were the captain, or maybe a little bit earlier, is that you guys get paired with the next 6 too. Like Keegan right now is in every event of signature as well. So at least he's getting to see what these guys are like under the gun, and how's their team chemistry and their personality will fit in with the other 6.
Yep. And I'll tell you, when I played with the captain, even if I was on the team, even if I was, fourth in points, when you got paired with the captain in an event, it always made you nervous. You always wanted to impress him. You always wanted to play well. You didn't want to go out there and fire a 75 and struggle. So I think one of the years I was trying to get a captain's pick was when Davis picked me for Medina, and we got paired together, either practice rounds, but I think we got paired together in one of those events leading up. And so you always want to impress, you want to show out, not scrape by and make the cut. You want to get yourself in the mix.
Jim, the Tunnel to Towers, which you heard this before.
Yep.
We give our guests these beautiful wrapped whiskey glasses, so we'll get these in the mail as a little
Super.
gift.
I appreciate that.
Being on the show. And
Thank you.
We'll get your address for sure. And we hope to see you at Bethpage. I mean, next time you come in there, I'll probably be there too. Oh, I'd rather see you at a USGA senior event than anything. So let's get you healthy
Well,
and
not this summer, but in the future, I'll get back at it.
Yeah, we're at the Broadmoor actually next week, but our viewers could listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, X, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. If you could share, like, love, repost, collaborate, we'd appreciate it. Dobbs, final comments?
Hey, listen, it was an honor having you on here, Jim. Thank you for all the great insights, and I look forward to seeing you at Bethpage.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, Jim, thanks a lot. You were the best.
I appreciate it. Thanks. I enjoyed it, guys, very much.
Thank you.